We are recording this Zoom. Feel free to join us with videos on, which is always lovely to see you all. But also, it's Monday, it's 5 o'clock. If you want to be lying on a beanbag or something, then you can be. I just need to mute. There we go. I'm getting some feedback. But welcome. I'm just gradually going to let everybody in. This is the third Music Teacher Monday. I'm going to mute you all as you join us. But welcome, and I hope you've had a lovely day. And there we go. Get people connecting to audio, and then we'll get started. And we're very excited to have Vaughan with us today, who's the most famous quotes on Twitter about music education, I think, of all. And so it's going to be great to hear from him. And then, of course, my partner in crime on Music Teacher Monday, Liz, is here. And we'll make sure everyone's audio is connected, and then we'll get started with today's session. And today we're thinking all about well-being, which is quite an important word. I was going to say it's quite a buzzword at the moment. I think it's hugely important. It's much more than that. But we're going to be thinking about that today, and thinking about all of the positives that we have in our music teaching roles. And hopefully you will leave feeling positive. And I think that that's a really important thing with well-being. So I think that's everybody in. So I've just had a week back after half term. I don't know whether, Liz, I can't remember whether our half terms were the same or not, whether you've been back for 2 weeks.
I think we were the same. Yeah, I think we were both away the same week.
So yeah, 6 days in, and I definitely need to think a little bit about well-being. It seems to me like students went away over half term, and then they come back and I don't know whether it's just boys in Windsor, but they seem a little bit off the wall. Those my nice days wandering on the beach in Cornwall, which I had in half term, which was lovely, seemed like a distant memory. So we had the same half term, Liz, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I was on the Northumbrian beaches at the same time as you were on your Cornish beaches.
It's nice. It is good. I don't know whether anyone lives by the sea, but I mean, it is lovely when you get away. And thinking about well-being, I mean, that was the best thing for my well-being.
Absolutely, yeah.
Getting away from it all. I did something which I have not done for a long time, which is delete the Outlook app from my phone, so I didn't have school email. Now, we won't have a show of hands, but I don't know whether you've got your school email on your phone. Deleting it was great. I had a few times where I kind of had like hot sweats at the thought of an email that might be waiting for me that I'm not replying to, but then I just realised that it was okay. I don't know whether you've got your email on your phone, Liz.
Well, interestingly, today our school went to two-factor authentication, and so I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll make sure it doesn't work on my phone. Oh no, I can't remember quite what to do, what buttons to press and things. So no, it doesn't work on my phone anymore, just in the last 24 hours, which I'm very proud of.
Well,
and I remember you saying about your phone and turning it off, and I just thought, yeah, I'll do the same. I'll just copy what James does.
Well, I think it worked. It was great. It was a lovely week because you never know when you're going to open your inbox and there's just going to be that one email that's going to send you off into just that negative thought process. And so all week I didn't really, I mean, I must admit I did spend some times in the week worrying about my email that I wasn't checking. And actually when I did check my email when I got home, there was nothing to worry about. So that was a bit silly. But if we're going to start with a well-being tip number one, I would say not having your work email on your phone, as useful as it is at times to quickly check. That certainly worked for me. And then my other tip is go to the seaside all the time, whenever possible, really.
But I think my two tips would be something, I can't remember where I picked this up from, but I thought, I'll give it a go, and it blooming worked. And apparently, the biggest compliment you can give someone is to ask for their help. In other words, they kind of think, oh, right, you think I'm worthy of helping you, run that rehearsal or tune that band or whatever it is. And so actually just drawing in people to, when you think you've got to do it all yourself,
Yeah.
But actually, if you've got a support network, not just of teachers, but also of students as well, who are like a really steady pair of hands. So, like, we've got in our department a student who's in year 12 now, who arrived in year 7 and came marching up to me and said, "Hello, my name is whatever, and I've come to help you organise senior choir," she said. And I thought, "Oh, hello, thanks very much." And she kind of became a kind of self-appointed librarian. So now whenever you go into rehearsal, all the parts are out, everything's copied, everything's in the right place. You're not hunting around for bits and pieces. And I thought, yeah, I blooming love that. Yeah. And then my other one is, you know, that thing of sometimes when in school, you know, you're surrounded by people who don't necessarily get it, and they don't necessarily get what it is to run a music department.
Yeah,
is the old me used to get really cross about it. And get really kind of, right, I'm putting up barriers, and I'm just like gonna, and I basically was turning lights off rather than turning lights on. And what the new me does is I go, right, who's a kind of like hard and fast, right, I refuse to, I don't want anything to do with the music department. It's to get them to come and do front of house for you or something at an event. And then when they see it and they can't believe it, you've got them. And then they spread the word a little bit, and you spread I don't know if it's poison or fairy dust, one of the two, just to get other people in your school to actually see what you do and get parents to see what you do who wouldn't normally be there. So again, it's this thing of, you know, they talk about how resilient people have lots of friends. It's in school, having lots of friends, people going, "Oh, do you want a hand putting stuff away after that event? Take your staging down for you." And all of a sudden you've got 5 people who are happy to help. And where I might say to a couple of sixth formers, "Oh, can you help me with a load of staging after an event?" The next thing you know, their parents are there also with their hands open, ready to carry boxes of stuff and help, you know. So that would be my 2 tips.
That's a good well-being tip. I mean, for those who've not joined us before, as you probably gathered, this is a very informal Zoom where Liz and I just chat to each other, and you all just listen in, and, you know, hopefully you find it interesting. But the whole point of Music Teacher Monday is kind of around this idea of well-being and the fact that I see music teachers out there, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, just kind of sometimes struggling or trying to do things on their own. It's quite an isolating world being a music teacher, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice to just have something where people could check in every month and listen to us kind of ramble on about hopefully some really interesting stuff, and then, you know, interview people and that kind of thing, because I think we've really got to be united as a workforce, and this Zoom is for everyone. So if you're primary, secondary, state, private, if you're a VMT, if you're retired, if you're, you know, whoever you are, if you're interested in music, be here, kind of thing. So that's why it is. So hopefully this in itself will be good for your well-being. But I think certainly getting people to help as well, not doing things on your own. And I'm getting better at that. Although it's so frustrating when you do delegate something and then it's not done very well. But apparently that's how other people learn. And I'm still trying to, you know, grasp this thing of being able to be hands off. And but I do find that you mentioned students. I'm more and more getting students to lead stuff, and it's so empowering and exciting when you have students doing a rehearsal and you pop in and they almost are like, "Yeah, can we help? Do you need anything?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just watching." And they're like, "Oh, okay, well, you know, you can go if you want." And they want to get on. And I walked out of a rehearsal the other day just feeling like, wow, this is, you know, I'm obviously doing something right, that they want to stay and they want to rehearse with these students. And it was just, you know, it's brilliant for your well-being. Because I think, you know, well-being, and that's kind of what I want to touch on today, is sometimes it's just looking for positives, just to keep you going. Sometimes it's like big changes you need to make, like, you know, work-life balance and taking email off your phone. But sometimes just for your well-being, it's just those moments in the day. It's looking out for the things that are going to just give you that boost. And we'll come on to Vaughan's tweets later. But, you know, if you do just go on Twitter sometimes, or if you do just get into the wrong conversation in the staff room, you can really feel yourself going, oh, why am I doing this? And then everything seems negative. So that's kind of what Music Teacher Monday is all about. And I hope that you all leave feeling a little bit more, supported and happy. And if you've got any questions at any point about anything, to be honest, anything to do with music or education, stick it in the chat and we'll see if we can answer it. But Liz, tell us what are some of the great joys of your job? What are what are your favourite things in the week to do?
I always find that, well, I've got to be honest with you, I'm like nuts about the curriculum. I really am. And I think when I'm teaching and I can see that, let's say we're tackling something that's tricky and students are actually engaged in that, it makes me really happy. When you spend a little bit more time making a resource and actually making it really good quality, I then find that as I go into the classroom and use it, it lifts me no end. I hate using a bad resource. And when you run off your feet and you get that resource back out again for this time of year and you go, what was I thinking? And then I find that if I've rewritten, we just did it last week, me and Tim Burnage at Huntington, and we just rewrote a couple of bits and pieces, put it out over the weekend and talked through a few ideas. And Tim's got 999, can you believe, on a Friday, plus a 12 and a 10 in his teaching day. And he said it was so nice to use the same resource for those 3 Year 9 groups, knowing that I was really pleased with it. And at the end of it, a couple more students said to him, I am going to now do GCSE music. And it was just like, yes, just off the back of a really nice resource. And similarly, on Friday night, when our choir sang at the Community Choir Festival in York, the number of parents that come to you and say, I really appreciate this, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, that lifts you no end as well. And the last one I'll tell you is our piano teacher decided, she said, is it all right if I bring a few bits and pieces to the classroom that I teach in? And she's in for 3 days, 3 solid days. And so if you imagine it, most of her working week is in our music department. So she's basically brought in an armchair and a rug and a few plants and a bit of lighting into a practice room, and all her resources are now in her room. And a couple of other instrumental visiting teachers have come to us and said, can I do the same with the room that I teach in? And all of a sudden, our practice rooms are starting to look like kind of mini people's living rooms with nice things in them. And teachers are saying it's so much nicer than just coming into a dull old practice room with 4 grey walls and you're stuck in there for 3 days solid. And so we've kind of beautified them a little bit, and they're really nice.
I think that's a good well-being tip, actually, like taking time to have a tidy sometimes and just just getting stuff organized. I don't know whether I mentioned last time about drilling, putting up all of the guitar hooks. Well, one day I just found myself with some time, which was rare, and I went to the caretaker and asked if I could borrow a drill. And I think he thought I was mad, but also he knows me, so he thought, well, all right. So I took his drill and got a couple of 6-formers and a pencil and just started putting up all these guitar hooks. And I hung up 40 guitars all around the music department everywhere, got them off the floor, and it was just great. Just to do a bit of a tidy, and they're not all completely straight, as someone has pointed out, and so they get kind of like gradually higher as I do it. But I think having a tidy environment. I did a little bit of a tidy this morning, is important, and I don't know how tidy your desk is, Liz. I reckon, I don't know. I reckon there's a pile on it somewhere.
Right, it's completely empty.
Oh,
it's honestly, I've got one of those kind of silent witness kitchens as well, where all the surfaces are completely empty, absolutely free.
Silent witness kitchen.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, like a slab for people, yeah. But I'll tell you what I've got. You're saying about your guitar hooks.
Yeah.
A drumstick box. It's taken me 30 years to think of putting the drumsticks in a box, because there's always like pair on the floor, one on a shelf, 2 on a ledge, a broken one somewhere. Nope, they're all in one box now. So when you see a pair, you put it in the box, and when kids say to you, got a pair of drumsticks, and you go, ta-da, and there's hundreds to choose from. So yeah, a drumstick box.
Yeah, being organised. It's so good. I don't know whether anyone's thinking, gosh, yeah, my desk needs a tidy. My classroom is the tidiest ever on like the open evening in October or something, where you just tidy, don't you, like mad, and if Ofsted come or something. But it's really nice to tidy everything away, But there's always one room in your department, and I've got one of the practice rooms where I just am in denial that it exists. And there's so much in there, bits of cello and bits of old banana skin probably behind everything. And I'm going to, at some point, tidy it, and I'm sure it'll make me feel better. So yeah, tidying is good. And I like what you say about your visiting teachers making the place their own. That's nice.
Yeah, in fact, I took a snap today as I was coming away from school, and I thought, I'm just going to stick that on Twitter and go, was it, I can't remember, there's one kind of beer company, it was like, if Heineken were to make, or were to do like, whatever it was like an advert, and everything was fantastic. So I thought, yeah, if Heineken was to do practice rooms, ... and stick a picture of this beautiful teaching room on there. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, no, that sounds good. Well, do you know what? We should probably
bring our guest in.
Bring our guest in now
before he leaves.
Well, because I don't know whether you know Vaughan. Now, one thing I've wanted to ask Vaughan, because I've never actually spoken to him, is how you properly pronounce your surname. So you can do that for us in a moment. But if you've never come across Vaughan before on Twitter, if you're not on Twitter, he is Mr. Positive. But also, he has quotes and tweets which really make you think about what you do as a music teacher and just as a musician. And recently, he's been retweeted by Classic FM. He gets lots of likes. And I thought, what better person to come and make us feel positive, to really inject some positivity, make us all, our well-being, it's just going to go up and up than Vaughan. And I'm really glad that you're joining us. And so my first question is, how do you pronounce your surname?
Well, here we have a problem, James, because you also have to throw in my Australian accent, which also adds in difficulties to it. And how I pronounce it mightn't be the same way that it's pronounced in German, where it means to eat meat like an animal in a violent, gluttonous manner. But that's another whole conversation. The first time I went through customs in Germany, the customs officer burst into laughter, apologized, and then continued to laugh because it's really not a name. But anyway, that's another story. So you start by saying fly, and then add a sh at the end, Fleisch, and then Fresser, as in the end of professor, Fleischfresser.
Fleischfresser. Excellent. Right, that's going to stay in now. Now, Liz is going to interview you and have a little chat with you. And then hopefully after this, if you've never followed Vaughan, then you're going to. And this is our top tip for your well-being, is to follow him on Twitter. Retweet, spread the positivity. But thank you for being here. And I'm going to hand over to Liz, who's going to just find out a little bit about you and what makes you so positive. And
I love this. To our audience, James throws me under the bus and says, "You're going to do the interview."
Just go for
it. Like I knew.
Because you're just so professional, Liz. Though you've got all
is
these.
That what it is? Yeah,
in our pre-Zoom chat, you were asking all of the right questions. So I thought, you know what? Why not?
Cool. Right, here we go. Vaughan, how do you look after yourself? You're a busy man. How do you do it?
That's a very good question. It's the word balance, I think, comes into it. And the longer I'm a teacher, the more realistic I become about what I can do and what I can't do. And I think that's one of the most important things. And being able to be comfortable in achieving what you can in the time that you've got. I used to burn the candle at both ends, and then I met my wife, and so I burnt the candle less, and then I had kids, and then I burnt the candle less. And so I found more ways of being able to use my time wisely. And also, I mean, the pandemic has helped me to become more balanced. I've had a pretty major family death in the last couple of years as well, which has made me retake stock of everything. Because of the pandemic, my parents in Australia haven't met my 3-year-old son. So it's been a long journey, but it's something I constantly have to work on. And it's something that I have to constantly balance with myself and my professional standards and what I want to achieve. But as long as I am seeing the kids in my class having fun, learning, progressing, then I'm happy with what I've done. And so that's that. I mean, at home, I listen to music a lot. I've found that I watch TV less and I listen to music more. I think I've become very introspective. I like to think about what's happened in my life beforehand and what might happen in the future. I think we're all very much in uncertain times, and I'm very much a thinker. And so I like to listen to music. I like to play with my kids, and I like to walk a lot. Actually, we've mentioned nature beforehand. I live in the Scottish borders just south of Edinburgh, and we've got some lovely countryside here. And having grown up on a farm in Australia, I've really enjoyed reconnecting with nature, essentially. So it's been a combination of things, but yeah, it's something I have to constantly work on, because I think as music teachers, we're all extremely passionate about what we do. I think we're very hardworking, and sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. So it's about being realistic with myself.
It's really interesting, isn't it? This idea of, how you want to be the very best that you can be, and to give all of your students every opportunity that you possibly can. But you are a human, and you do have a family, and this is work. We don't have to live this. I know a lot of us kind of live the job the whole time. I know I've been in absolute terror at just living the job the whole time, but you've got to find time. When you're trying to find time for yourself, where do you seek inspiration? So if your batteries are low and you're kind of like looking, apart from being outdoors and enjoying nature and enjoying your family, for you with musical ideas, where do you go to get new ideas? Or do they come to you because of experience and maybe because of need in the classroom for something? Where do you get your inspiration from?
Driving 1 hour to work and 1 hour back, I've started to listen to a lot more music, which has given me a lot more ideas. And also, having moved into primary teaching from my 3/4 of my career was in secondary, and the last quarter has been a mix of teaching in universities and teaching in primary. I've really rediscovered a love of the basics of music and starting to create music right from the beginning. And so that my pupils have really inspired me, and trying to create activities to help the young people that I teach fall in love with and engage with music in a deeper level. So that combination of just listening to a broader range of music and trying to find ways to help really young kids start to make their own music, that combination I found has really inspired me to become a lot more creative. We were saying before people joined us, I started a YouTube channel during lockdown simply just to store materials, because here in Scotland we weren't able to sing or play instruments together for just over a year. So we had to find different ways to engage our kids, different activities to do. So it was also out of the force of necessity that made me become a lot more creative. But yeah, that's really what's helped me recently.
You were saying about how you worked in secondary school originally. What is it? Can you give us any examples of where you've brought your secondary practice into primary school?
Oh, absolutely. So I've been astounded by what kids in primary school can do in comparison to what they're often told they can do or thought that they can do. And so I have really found myself doing stuff with, we call it, in Scotland we have P1 through to P6, which means primary. So finding myself, and in the school I work at, I'm currently in an independent school. Our P7s go up to the secondary site, so I only teach up to P6. And I've discovered I'm doing stuff with them that when I was in secondary school I was doing in the first 1 or 2 years of secondary school. And they're lapping it up, and they're really enjoying it. Now obviously you have to pitch it in slightly different ways, but the capacity is there, the desire is there, and the ability is there. So that's where I've found the most fascinating thing, is drawing on my secondary experience, is the fact that when you've got that ability to really work in the transitional phase, the possibilities are absolutely endless.
When you kind of reach, and as we all do, you kind of reach a kind of capacity point where you simply can't do any more, but then you are asked to do more. How do you respond to that, and kind of what are your tactics for responding to when people say, oh, can you also do this next week, or at the weekend could you do this, can you bring your choir to this event? What's your coping mechanism for that? What do you do when your capacity is full but people still want more of you?
Well, I'm very lucky where I work, in the school that I work. I've never actually reached that point to be honest. And from what I can gather, learning through social media, I think the inspection expectations and the quality assurance expectations in Scotland are quite a lot less than in England. So there is a lot of freedom for me. I can essentially do whatever I want within the curriculum for excellence. It's that flexible, as long as I can say we have a levels-based system and the kids can work within the level-based system. They don't need to be anywhere at any point. It's just where they are at that time. So yeah, in terms of in the classroom, I find that I do a lot of improvisation, and I think that's something that's really empowering the young children that I have in front of me. So when they get to secondary and they hit that socially awkward age where they start to be concerned about what's happening around them, having that capacity just to create music without that fear of failure or knowing that it's a learning opportunity. But when I get busy at work, it's about having open and real conversations with the powers that be, making them aware that, you know, one day in a school is 1 week in a music department. It's about making sure that they're very clear with communication and understanding the role of the music department. And I'm very lucky. My head teacher actually teaches music to one of the nursery classes. The deputy sings in the Scottish National Orchestra choir. So I'm very lucky where I am to have sympathetic leadership. So those situations are rare for me, which I'm very grateful to have those situations.
Yeah, talking about inspiration, when you started kind of putting your tweets out there, what inspired you to start with your first kind of comments?
Well, really, I wanted to try and become part of the Scottish music education community, because I'm originally from Australia and I came over here for 5 years, met my current wife, who's from Scotland. We moved back to Australia for a couple of years and then came back. I've lived in America for a bit. So having grown up in Australia, it's kind of, you know, the whole it's not what you know, it's who you know. I grew up in that part of the world and people knew who I was. Whereas
Yes.
I came over here and I was just a weird name with what appeared to be a made-up CV. So so I just started on Twitter to share my thoughts, to get to know people, to share my passion, and so could people see that I am a real person. I have thoughts. I have views on education, and so it was really just to express myself. And there was a time, and that's what really I think sharpened my enthusiasm of late. When I moved to Scotland for the second time, I was unable to get a job in teaching, just because of the time of year and whatnot, and I had to get a job, and I ended up working in human resources in a multinational healthcare company. And then within 18 months I'd been promoted 3 times, and I was the human resources and quality assurance manager, working in the UK, working in Ireland, and it was just utterly bizarre, and I was so unhappy because I just wanted to get back to teaching, but I couldn't. And so when the opportunity came to take up some teaching in junior schools, I just jumped at it. And so that passion was actually reignited through the fact that I had music teaching taken away from me for 2 years, and that changed my philosophy on everything when I returned to it, because it reminded me of why I got into it in the first place. It took away all the things that had dragged me down, and you get into the routines. And so I'm not advocating that you leave teaching for a couple of years and come back, but that really made me realize why I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Liz, I was just going to jump in and say,
do.
I mean, one of the big kind of themes always with your tweets is this idea of the music department, and you know that's the place where we've all kind of been today, and it is a different little world, isn't it, in a school, you know, and it's kind of removed from everything, and I think what I love is always remembering that, and your tweets always remind me of that actually we are doing something really unique, and in terms of thinking about our well-being, you know, when you are feeling a little bit low, it is remembering actually this music department is a place for children to come, and that's such a theme in some of your tweets, that it's a place for them to be. I wonder if you can kind of like describe like your department, maybe something from today that might be what's going on behind some of those tweets.
Well, the basis of the tweets really comes from my upbringing. I grew up in a small country town in rural Australia where rugby league was king. And so you either loved rugby league or you loved farming. And whilst I grew up on a farm, I wasn't very good at it, and I didn't like rugby league. So in a whole through school, I was thinking, where do I belong? And the music department at the local high school had the most wonderful department, led by the most inspiring man, and that's what hooked me. And it was the opportunity to go to the music department at lunchtime and just hang out with my friends and teach ourselves the opening drum part to Smells Like Teen Spirit when none of us were drummers, but to be allowed to go into the music room and just play with the drums, to be able to listen to music. The music teacher would say, hey, why don't you go and listen to this, and we'd just sit and listen with him, and then through those moments you'd start to share things and you'd start to feel like you belong. And then he'd say, well, why don't you come along and learn this instrument, and then you'd join the band, and then you'd meet other people, and that's just where it all flowed, all of my tweets. And it was through that I found my confidence, really, because I would just walk around secondary school thinking, well, I don't fit in with the rugby league kids, I don't fit in with the guys talking about the most recent farming equipment, so where do I belong? And it was that music department that made me belong. And I was just thinking today, for example, there's a young boy in our school who his mother has just been diagnosed with cancer, and he's really struggling to express himself and to be around his peers at lunchtime, but he loves to play the guitar. So he comes along at lunchtime and at break time and just sits and plays the guitar. And then so we started to hang out with each other, and I started to add in a piano part, and then the drum teacher heard what was going along and he came along and started to play the drums. And then before we knew it, we'd formed a band. And then he thought, well, maybe I could put on a charity concert to raise some money. So he's going to be putting on a charity concert. He's getting his class together to sing backing vocals. And so it's just given that kid a place to belong at a time when he needs it most, when he was walking around the playground not quite knowing where he did belong. And for me, that's what we give kids that they don't always get elsewhere. I'm not saying, and some people always respond to my tweets saying, well, that happens in other parts of the school. Absolutely. And that's fantastic. I'm not saying it doesn't. Never once have I said that. But for me, that was what it provided for me. And that's what I always hope for it to try and provide to the people in my care.
And in terms of our own well-being as teachers, it's important to look for those positives, isn't it? And look for those places where we are having impact, because we can sometimes just not do that, and we can forget, what our department's about, because with all the lessons and the assessments and the meetings and everything, you can just not stop. And every now and again I just walk in the music room and see the most eclectic range of students that are all in there at lunchtime or all doing something. And even, I had parents' evening last week, and it's all online and you kind of dread it a little bit, but actually you have these lovely conversations with students who are like, actually they're really getting something from it. And I find that some of them talk more online on the video calls than kind of in person. So I think just that reminder, and this is a reminder to all of you there, the job we do is brilliant, and it's not easy at all. And some people have been putting in the chat, it's really tough, but just reminding ourselves that we offer this amazing service to everyone in our school, and that's so important. But obviously, Vaughan, it's not all going to be, it's not all positive, isn't it? Sometimes there are going to be tough moments. I wonder if what are some of the challenges you've met recently, maybe moving from secondary to primary, or things you miss. What are some of the challenges you face?
Well, moving from secondary to primary has been a massive challenge, because it's you're having to completely pitch music in a different way, and I basically had to reteach myself how to teach music, because it's I'll never forget the first time I worked in a primary school. It was the first day of the school year, and I was just told, right, you've got the combined year 1 and 2 class, off you go. And for the year 1s, it was their very first day of school, and I'm sitting there and a kid's grabbing my leg, another one's yelling at me saying, you're not my dad, another one's saying, where's the toilet? And I'm just thinking, I really miss the complaining 16-year-olds. And so I think the hardest things I've had, but has shown me the importance of music teaching, is the ability to be able to adapt and the ability to be able to reinvent, because we're constantly having to teach music, and music is constantly changing. The children that we're teaching are constantly changing, and so we as teachers, I think, have to constantly change. And that's what I've found, having worked now, taught from primary right through, or nursery right through to university, is that ability to just constantly readapt, look at the kids you've got in front of you, and just work out the best way to make them fall in love with music. And when I first started to teach, I was young and I wanted to, everyone should be studying music at university, everyone should become a music teacher. Whereas now, well, no, I want them to be able to go to a concert and know to turn their phone off. I want them to know when to clap. I want them to go to a concert and enjoy different music. I want them to be able to join a choir when they leave school. And so these things when you see the love that the little kids have, it's about how can I capture that so soon, but how can I get them making music? I've also noticed, working in lots of primary schools, the sheer variance in provision, the sheer variance in value of what we do. So it's not just engaging the kids, it's engaging the community, engaging the other parents. So it's the biggest challenge has basically been a salesman while reteaching myself how to teach music to 5-year-olds, essentially.
Yeah, it's interesting, the thing you were just saying then about the sales pitch. I'm working with a school in Hull, and they want to do an arts festival similar to the type of thing that we do at Huntington. And I said one of the best things that we ever did was, with the kind of like non-believers and people that don't think that what you're doing is valuable, or that a student attending choir or learning an instrument is valuable, is get them into some rehearsals. So what we often do is kind of have open rehearsals in the evenings, just to say, come and have a look. This isn't polished, finished work or anything like that, but just come and have a look, and have a proper invite list. So rather than just being kind of open doors, we'll kind of go for certain parents who, let's say if they've got a son or daughter who has got like a ton of potential, but parents are, no, you can't do that. Even though I'm going to put an instrument in their hands and find a bursary for them, no, you're not allowed, because that's a waste of time, because nobody ever gets a job doing music, type of thing. And so, yes, that sales thing is a really important part of just winning hearts and minds. Sorry to butt in, sorry.
No, it's fine. What's interesting, I have 2 children, and my youngest was a planned C-section, and so I remember sitting in the operating theatre, and there was just random chit-chat beforehand, and so the consultant asked me what I did, and I said I was a music teacher. And then for the next 10 minutes, the most glorious conversation happened, where the consultant, the anaesthetist, all of the people in the room shared how they had, I've done piano up to grade 7, or I played the violin in the school orchestra, I still sing in a choir. If it wasn't for music, I wouldn't have got through university. If it wasn't for music, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for the dexterity of my fingers, I wouldn't be able to welcome your son into the world. And I just sat there thinking, this is the most amazing conversation in the world. And if parents could have been in that room, it would have been wonderful. So I share that story, and I always think it's, and again, this is not always the case, but I always think, why hasn't anyone told the ducks of the school that they shouldn't be doing music? Because 9 times out of 10 they do. So it's interesting.
So Vaughan, before we kind of run out of time, we want to draw on all your wisdom. So we've given a few kind of well-being tips, and you've mentioned a few. But is there anything? Maybe not just well-being, but I'm thinking like music teacher life hacks. Those kind of things that you see pop up, where just ways of making things easier, because that can sometimes be good for our well-being. I don't know if you've got any tips. Sorry to put you on the spot, if but anything that you can think of to share.
Music teacher life hacks. That is really putting me on the spot.
Well, sorry. Well, or just any like well-being. Like, what other things do you do just to really give you that sense of like just boosting your own well-being, your own mental health?
For me, well, weirdly, recently it's been singing nursery rhymes with my children. I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. So again, just making music for the sheer joy of making music. Also joining many community groups. I conduct a community wind band, and I sing in a community choir. And it's interesting talking about the value of music to the children that we teach. Having those ensembles start again. Again, our restrictions in Scotland have gone on a lot longer than in England. So we've been deprived of so much togetherness and music making. So for me, I have found reinvigoration through making music again, both with my children, both with the children that I teach, and also just with my friends and the local community. I think the pandemic really made me realize how precious making music with each other is. And so taking advantage of those opportunities. For example, our school is just really a buzz at the moment, because on Friday we're going to be able to have our first whole school assembly. Since COVID happened, we haven't been able to have anything like that in Scotland at all, and we're just now been given the go-ahead to have parents actually come to a concert at the end of March. Again, there's been nothing like that, so it's just reminding myself of the joys of making music and having people come to witness music. So yeah, for me, my well-being has really been enhanced by just making music. I realized I hadn't touched my saxophone for 2 years. I realized I hadn't played my saxophone to my son hadn't heard me play the saxophone at all. So it was just going back to those roots of, why did I become a music teacher? Well, because I liked playing the saxophone. I liked being in bands. I liked singing in choirs. I liked creating music. I liked improvising. So going back to that has really reinvigorated me at a time when it's become far too easy just to sit on the couch and mope.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for all you've shared, and thank you for your daily tweets, or maybe they aren't daily, but they feel like they are, and they're just great to read. And I know sometimes being insanely positive can be frustrating for some people, but it's great also for those of us that just need that little boost and that reminder. And I guess that's kind of a real message of what you share and what we're talking about today, is actually don't forget the importance of what we do when you are feeling stressed out and there's loads to do, and stop and look at the students and look at the joy on their faces, and remember that they do want music. People inherently they do want to play. They do love it when you do something new in a lesson or offer some extracurricular stuff. And so thank you for that. And if you don't follow Vaughan, your followers are going to go up by at least 30 today. So do you know what I mean? So that is, but your Classic FM fame. So thank you very much for joining us and for sharing what you do. I mean, I a few other things have come to my mind that I've done in terms of my own well-being that have really helped, that are kind of practical things, not to do, I guess, so much with teaching, but I got rid of my car during lockdown because I didn't really need it. And just start to walk everywhere. And I'm quite lucky in that I can walk to work. So Vaughan, I don't think that you're going to walk to work because you said it was an hour in the car. But actually walking places has really just been really nice. I know this sounds like I'm talking down to you, but like going to bed early. I don't know whether anyone's tried going to bed early, but the other night, my wife and I, we went to bed at about 8:15, and it was great. I think our kids were still up, but they're old enough to kind of sort themselves out. But that, just some of those little things, and like just exercising. And I do this thing where if I'm doing planning, I'll take a lesson plan for a walk kind of thing. And what I mean by that is I'll go out for a walk with the dog. And if I've got something to think about, I'd rather just be thinking about it and processing it rather than doing it in front of a screen, sat down. And it's quite a good way of like take something for a walk, as it were, just to like think it through, and let it kind of bed in whilst you're outside, and taking something for a run as well. So that's more like if I'm a bit stressed about something, and then you can run with it. So just like if you're trying to plan a lesson, go out for a walk and just do it as you walk around. The other thing I'm just trying to do is just look at kind of students differently as well. I mean, this is a bit more of a music teacher type thing, but kind of I've been trying to spot the students that I feel I can make an impact on, as well as the students where I can develop them. And what I mean by that is, sometimes we can be always thinking about the musical students, as it were. I hate to say that because all students are musical, and we can forget those ones that are like hanging around the music room, like desperate to be able to play something on the piano, or desperate to be, and just I've been kind of enjoying working with those kind of students, just to watch their progress. Like don't forget the ones that are kind of waiting for you to help them out. So Liz, I don't know if you've got any final kind of practical things that you do. I mean,
well, you were just saying about the kids hanging around the practice rooms, blah blah blah. Since we started this band society on a Wednesday after school, at lunchtime the most unlikely characters are coming up the stairs and saying, can we use blah 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 blah. And sometimes your prejudice is, oh, well, no, because it's so-and-so that's going to go in there and trash the place. But actually, they're often the students who you then hear 4 weeks later have pulled something together. And that's the greatest gift, is when you hear those students, most unlikely people, start to create something that you never imagined was what they were going to do. I was going to say, you were talking about like taking the app off your phone and stuff. One thing I found is, especially when I moved school, was don't flog a dead horse. If something isn't working, stop doing it.
Yeah.
And if there's an ensemble where you have to drag the kids there kicking and screaming every week, you're doing it wrong. They should be banging the door down. Is it repertoire? Is it the way in which you do it? How are you doing it? But don't flog a dead horse. And then it's our careers week this week. And we've been across the school, students in year 7, 8, and 9, hearing about the professions that people go into through different routes. And so what we did was we've interviewed a load of our alumni so that they can see familiar faces and students who've been through Huntington. So it's not just a kind of an external, this might be someone from the other side of the world that's done this, but someone who they know with a local accent who can say, oh yeah, I work as a Foley artist now. Oh, I work as a sound engineer now. I work in the West End. I'm doing arrangements for orchestras and all the rest of it. And I said today to my year 7s this afternoon, the thing about music, it's a bit like music and sport, is you live with these things. It's not just that it's what you do for a living. It's that it's part of a lot of people's lives. A lot of people go and play five-a-side at the weekend. A lot of people sing in a choir, play in a band, play in an orchestra. And all of those things are, part of what we're trying to do, which is music for life. And that, again, just bringing that joy into people's lives is immensely fulfilling for us, because you see it happen. And the last thing I'll say is, you're saying about your lessons and the idea of taking your lesson for a walk. I found if I'm awake about 3 o'clock in the morning, if I walk through the start of a lesson and go, right, I'm going to walk all the way through this lesson that's an hour long, I'm out like a light. Honestly, the soporific qualities of my teaching and putting the kids to sleep, I can put myself asleep for thinking about it. So I find this really good for insomnia as well, as walking through a lesson, because I'm out. Honestly, I've gone. Brilliant. Anyway.
Send us all your lesson plans, Liz, and then we can...
Because they're all that boring.
But you know what? I mean, just, a few final things. I think what's really important is, obviously, I don't know everyone on here, but it's so important for your well-being to get connected with other music teachers. As you know, this is all kind of supported by Music Teachers Association, which is a wonderful... just body group organisation of people, and since joining that, my well-being has improved because I've got people I can call upon. I know where I can find advice. So if you don't know anything about Music Teachers Association, please do get in touch. And they have a wonderful podcast that Patrick does, which is just great, and just loads of great advice. And then there's a conference coming up, and that is something that I really am already looking forward to. Loads of great CPD and all of that kind of stuff. And on that note, just going along to things like this, finding stuff you can, webinars and Zooms that you can plug into, I think is really important. There's an ISM Teach Meet tomorrow, which I'm actually part of. That's not why I'm saying it, but those kind of things that you just go along and just get advice. You don't have to. Gone are the days of travelling into London for a course all day that you kind of, and you got to get there and get back. You can just sit at home and do these. So just finding stuff you can plug into, and just also it's all of those basic things of just remembering that the job that we do as music teachers makes a difference. And Vaughan reminds us of that in our tweets. And when you're feeling down and low and fed up, it might just be one lesson, and there are so many lessons in a week, and so many lessons in a term, and you're not going to get them all right. So just don't beat yourself up over it, and just find that. Just remember that you're making a difference. And it's tough out there. Some people have mentioned one-person departments. I've been there. When you're on your own and you want to go and talk to somebody about things. So find people in other schools to link up with. If you're in primary, find someone in a local secondary, and vice versa. And secondary teachers, get into primary schools and go and see what's going on. If you need your cup of well-being filled up, go into a primary school where, honestly, I go into the first schools that I work with, and it is like I'm a celebrity, and they are like, it's the man off the telly, because I do Zooms with them, and they see me around Windsor and start singing songs at me, and their parents are like, who is this man that you're singing at? But it fills you with joy to see that, as much as it does to see 17-year-old boys playing rock songs, seeing the younger ones. So that will help you out. But don't suffer in silence. Don't do it alone. And Liz and I are both people that if you get in touch with, we will try and get in touch with you, or we'll put you in touch with somebody. But you're all here, and you're all doing the right thing. So yeah, there's that ISM Teach Me. There's also various other kind of webinars and stuff that you'll see online if you're looking for CPD, passing notes, education. Do some great stuff. I Can Compose. There's loads of things out there. If you're feeling like you just want to save time because your well-being is getting attacked by your Sunday night and you're trying to create resources, there's so much out there that people have that they can share with you. So do get involved. I don't know whether, Liz, you've got any other things that you know about that are coming up that you want to chuck in there, or any final
No, I was just going to say, jump on my website, jump on the Huntington Music website, because there's a ton of stuff there, and it will save you a bit of time. And there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes when you got to sit down and there's 4 hours work to do, if you can jump on a resource and then grab the slides and adapt them, then that's a handy starting point, if that makes sense. I just find that things like I make tons of Spotify playlists for things, because when you're really looking for an example of something and you're on the back foot with your students and you just can't think of it, if it's there and it's to hand, my goodness, it's really useful.
Brilliant. Well, Vaughan, thank you again for joining us and for all your positivity. Keep it up. And one day I can just see a little book of Vaughan quotes, where every page is a different quote, and we need those. But thank you very much, and all the best in all that you're doing. Liz, thank you for being here with me, as ever. And Liz is one of those people who I just love talking to, and is just such a rock of support. And thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon. I hope that you have a really good week. Get in touch if you need anything. Join Music Teachers Association for sure. And always be thinking about your well-being, but always remember that what you do, we have the best job in the world being music teachers. It's so wonderful. And so just keep going, keep up the good work. And it's not long until Easter. It's only 5 weeks, wasn't it? So thank you very much. Next month we are meeting just before the Easter break. I'm just quickly checking the date so I get it right. The 4th of April, and we're going to be focusing on exams, which sounds like the worst sales pitch for a Zoom ever, but we're going to get some guests on just talking about like tips for exams, and not just kind of GCSEs and A-levels, but music exams, and just kind of all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's really important for all stages as well. You might be in primary and have some students that are young and going in for doing graded exams and all that kind of stuff. And as ever, it will be the usual ramblings of me and Liz. And we hope that you'll be able to join us on the 4th of April. So thank you very much. Cheers, Vaughan, and thank you everybody.
Thanks,
and we'll see you next month for Music Teacher Monday. Thanks everybody.